welcome to another edition of It's Your City. I'm Bob Crowell, and I have the distinct honor and privilege of being the mayor of the greatest city in Nevada, our very own capital, Carson City. As you see this broadcast, I'm giving this presentation from the Board of Supervisors panel at the community center. It's a little different than what I usually do when I do it at the Brewery Arts Center with the room at Access TV. And I generally just try and give a little rundown of what happened at the last board meeting and some other things going on around the community that I know about. Let me just start by saying it was a fairly short agenda on the August 1st meeting, but let me talk about some of those things. First, there was an issue with respect to the ambulance fund, which is a separate fund that writes off about $1 million a year in uncollectible debt. And the issue was, why does that occur? That's a lot of time, utilization of personnel and equipment for which, we're not getting paid. And the Chief Giomi has explained, as he's done in the past, that we really have no alternative when people call 911, they want an ambulance to show up, and that's perfectly understandable. The next question is, getting paid, and there are some, you get paid through Medicare, Medicaid, but a lot of times people who just leave, or they can't find them, or whatever. But at the end, and as the chief also said, there's a lot of there not only in Carson City but around the country. There seems to be a move where people are using the 911 ambulance service to get to the emergency room because they don't have a primary care doctor, and so they're using the ambulance service to get to the emergency room to not avoid necessarily, but to take the place of a doctor. The chief has said that the next step that they think they're going to be doing is probably if they have some law that would change this a little bit, allow the paramedics who come on a 911 call to perhaps on certain of those calls to do some treatment, antibiotic treatment or other things that don't necessarily require the emergency room to do, that they could do those at the scene and avoid a transport to the emergency room. That's something that the chief says that he thinks that we're going to hit that, we're going to do that at some point in time. But the law currently doesn't allow that, and there needs to be some enabling legislation to do it. But he thinks that's where it's going. In the meantime, we do budget for uncollectibles in our ambulance service of about $1 million a year, and I think that would also tell us that, how many times that ambulance, our paramedics and ambulance services are being used in our community. It's a lot. It's a lot, and that's not going to change even if we privatize the entire ambulance response teams. They'd have the same problems and the same issues with respect to uncollectibles. So, that's just something for right now we have to live with because it's a service we cannot avoid. Also, at the same time on that board meeting, the board approved the appointment of Tad Fletcher as the new Department of Alternative Sentencing chief to take the place of retiring Chief Rory Planetta. Mr. Fletcher was unanimously was approved by the screening committee that was created pursuant to our municipal code. The screening committee interviewed a number of, I think it was 5 applicants, although they had a lot of applications for the position, and recommended that Mr. Fletcher be appointed. The board accepted that recommendation, and Mr. Tad Fletcher is now our new Department of Alternative Sentencing chief. And we look forward to working with him over the next years here. He comes with a very good background, and not only in law enforcement, but in terms of, great background in terms of law enforcement and also issues with respect to court security, which is a big area for the Department of Alternative Sentencing because they do the court security as well. So again, we look forward to working with Mr. Fletcher. Also, one of the issues that came before the board was whether or not to raise the electric franchise fee by 0.5% to 5%. That's about a $240,000 item that would add $240,000 to the general fund. Back in February, there's a little history of that item. Back in February, when the board undertook the budget process, the board gave direction that the budget would be built around raising the electric franchise fee from 4.5% to 5% to be consistent with the franchise fee for Southwest Gas and Charter Communications. The 5% is the maximum allowed by state law, and it cannot go any higher than that. Accordingly, the budget was built around that increase, and what we heard at the board meeting was the actual public hearing to go over the business impact statement, and also to determine whether or not there should be a formal resolution adopting the new franchise fee from 4.5% to 5%. There was a considerable discussion by the board as to what would happen if you didn't do that, and as I mentioned earlier, it's about a $240,000 item, and the response from our staff and our finance director was, if we don't do that, then we're coming back to amend the budget, and that will mean either personnel or services will be reduced from where they are. We'll have to find $240,000 somewhere else, and that's probably through personnel reduction, or, well, it's got to be through personnel reduction because that's where it would come from. The board voted 4-1 to stay with the position the direction that it had given the staff in preparing the budget back in February, and so that will go into effect September 1 of this year. But again, we look at these things, and I think, as Supervisor McKenna said during the hearing, as well as echoed by other supervisors, that we look at all these things, these rates, annually when we do the budget. And if there's a way where we can reduce either the property tax or the franchise fees, we'll be trying to do that. Right now, our sales tax numbers are up. I think the finance director indicated we're about $100,000 ahead of budget right now, but we're right at the 5% ending fund balance, which is the target of this board. Actually, we have the state law says that you can go to 4%. Our board has said we want an ending fund balance of at least 5%, and that our desire would be to move that even to 8%, which is what it was in the years in the middle of the last decade. But again, we will be looking at those every year to see if there's a way where things can be reduced to reduce the load on our community. As I mentioned during the board meeting, we're all in this together in a sense, and there's a load on our community. There's a load on our personnel because we've reduced a lot of personnel in our general fund area, and we all need to understand that everybody has to give a little, I guess, is what the answer is there. But these votes are not easy. Let me tell you, they're not easy. Let me conclude by saying on August 14th, I'm going to travel to Las Vegas to be with the Director of Veterans Affairs and I think the governor will be there to talk about the implementation of the Green Zone Initiative, which will that initiative proposes to set up advisory commissions in each of our jurisdictions that have the imprimatur of a formal agency that would be the coordinating group for all the veterans groups in the particular counties or cities. And that way, there would be a way for each of those groups to participate in an advisory committee so that they would all have a great line of communication to the state Veterans Affairs coordinator and also to the federal Veterans Affairs administration. We'll see where that goes on August 14th, but frankly, it looks pretty exciting. There are a lot of hard-working Veterans Affairs organizations that look after different veterans groups, and it would be good to have a degree of coordination, and they cooperate well now, but it'd be good to have a degree of coordination between them to kind of speak with one voice on general matters affecting our veterans in our community and our troops that are currently serving. So I'll be reporting back after I see what happens at that meeting. That's about it that's happened at the last board meeting and going on. You will, I think when you see this, maybe the Jazz and Beyond month starts in August, so we'll be having a lot of free jazz throughout the city. It kicked off, by the time you see this, it kicked off at a garden party at the Governor's Mansion. Also, the citizens group creating or raising funds for new animal shelter, Cassie, will be having or had a benefit Saturday night to raise funds for our animal shelter, which is a very good event, which was a very good event. Sorry to talk both in the present and past tense, but I know you're going to see this after those events happened. Let me just conclude by saying I want to thank each and every one of you for helping to make Carson City a better place to live, work, and play. We couldn't do all these things without our community and our citizens. And as you've heard me say in the past, the greatest asset we have in our community, the greatest asset we have are our citizens who every day work very hard to make Carson City the best place to live, period. Thank you again.